The windshield wipers couldn't keep up. Sarah's knuckles were white against the steering wheel as snow attacked her Honda Civic from every direction, transforming the mountain road into a white void. In the back seat, 7-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Tyler had finally stopped asking, "Are we there yet?" The silence was somehow worse. Then came the sound every driver dreads. A grinding, mechanical death rattle from under the hood, followed by the car's violent shudder and the terrifying coast into powerlessness. No, 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 and no. Sarah pumped the brakes, guiding the dying vehicle toward what she hoped was the shoulder. The car settled into snow that was already halfway up the doors. She turned the key. Nothing. Again. Nothing. The engine was dead. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Are you somewhere warm? Or are you facing winter like Sarah? Because what happens next will make you question everything you think you know about trusting strangers. Sarah grabbed her phone. No service. Of course. They were somewhere between Durango and nowhere, on a road she'd taken as a shortcut that now felt like the worst decision of her life. Outside, the blizzard was transforming from inconvenience to killer. The temperature gauge on her dashboard read 19 degrees and dropping. "Mommy, I'm cold," Emma whimpered from the back seat. "I know, baby. Put on your extra jacket." Sarah's mind raced through survival shows she'd half-watched. How long before hypothermia sets in? How long before someone finds us? The road had been empty for the last 30 minutes. No cars, no houses, nothing but pine trees being slowly erased by white. She tried the engine again. Dead silence, not even a click. Tyler started crying. That's when Sarah saw it. A shadow moving through the storm. At first, she thought it was a trick of the swirling snow. But no, there was definitely something out there. Someone. The figure grew larger, more defined, walking with purpose directly toward her car. Sarah's heart hammered. Every news story, every warning, every statistic flooded her consciousness. They were alone, vulnerable. 3 easy targets in a metal coffin. The figure emerged from the white chaos. A tall black man, maybe 40, wearing a heavy winter coat and boots built for this weather. His face was hard to read through the snow, but his eyes locked onto hers through the driver's window. He approached slowly, deliberately, until he was standing right beside her door. Sarah's hand hovered over the lock button, even though she knew it was futile. If he wanted in, the window was just glass. He leaned down and knocked. Not aggressive, but firm enough to be heard over the howling wind. Sarah cracked the window half an inch, cold air rushing in like a knife. The man's voice was deep, calm, but urgent. "Your car's not starting, is it?" How did he know? Had he been watching them? "We're fine," Sarah lied, her voice shaking from more than just cold. "My husband knows where we are. He's coming." The man's expression didn't change. "Ma'am, it's 19 degrees and dropping. This storm's supposed to get worse before it gets better. You've got maybe an hour before hypothermia becomes a serious problem for those kids." Sarah's arms instinctively wrapped tighter around herself. "We'll wait in the car. Someone will come." "No one's coming tonight. This road's about to be impassable." He paused, snow collecting on his shoulders. "I have a cabin, 1/4 mile up that trail. Heat, food, phone service from the landline." Every fiber of Sarah's being screamed danger. Strange man, isolated location, no witnesses. But Emma was shivering despite 2 jackets, and Tyler's lips were starting to look pale. The man seemed to read her hesitation. "I know how this looks. I know what you're thinking, but I'm telling you the truth. If you stay in this car tonight, you won't see morning. None of you will." Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. "How do I know I can trust you?" The man's jaw tightened. "You don't. But you don't have a choice either." He stepped back from the car, giving her space, and said the words that would haunt her for the next hour. "Come with me, please, before it's too late." Sarah looked at her children, then at the darkening storm, then back at the stranger who held their fate in his hands. "What would you do?" Sarah's hands trembled as she unbuckled her seatbelt. She was really doing this, following a complete stranger into a blizzard, into the woods, toward a cabin she couldn't see with children she'd sworn to protect. Every maternal instinct screamed that this was insane, yet staying in the car meant certain death. "Emma, Tyler, we're going to take a walk with this gentleman," Sarah said, forcing steadiness into her voice that she didn't feel. The man had already moved several feet away, giving them space as if he understood the psychological game being played. "My name's Marcus," he called over the wind. "I'm going to walk ahead. You follow my tracks. It's not far, but watch your step." As Sarah bundled the kids out of the car, she made sure to grab her phone. Still no service, and felt the weight of the pepper spray in her coat pocket. It was something. Not much, but something. The cold hit them like a physical blow. Emma gasped, and Tyler immediately started whimpering. The wind cut through their clothes as if they were paper. Within seconds, Sarah understood Marcus hadn't been exaggerating. They would have died in that car. But was this alternative any better? Marcus moved through the snow with the confidence of someone who'd walked this path 1,000 times. Sarah kept the kids between her and him, close enough to follow, far enough to run if needed. Her mind raced through every true crime podcast she'd ever listened to. Isolated cabin. No witnesses. Why would anyone live alone out here anyway? What was he running from? "Mommy, I can't feel my toes," Emma said, her voice small and scared. "We're almost there, baby. Keep walking." But were they almost there? They'd been trudging through knee-deep snow for what felt like forever. Sarah's sense of direction was completely gone. Just white above, white below, white all around. She was completely at this man's mercy. He could be leading them anywhere. Nowhere. Marcus glanced back. 5 more minutes. I know it feels longer. How did he know what she was thinking? The observation unsettled her further. Tyler stumbled and fell face-first into the snow. Before Sarah could react, Marcus had turned back, and something fell from under his coat. Something dark. Something he quickly scooped up and shoved back inside before Sarah could identify it. A weapon. A knife? Oh God. What had she done? "He okay?" Marcus asked, maintaining his distance as Sarah pulled Tyler to his feet. "We're fine," Sarah snapped. Hearing the edge of panic in her own voice, she pulled both kids closer, practically dragging them forward now. Marcus said nothing, just kept walking. But Sarah noticed he'd adjusted his coat more carefully, making sure nothing else would fall out, making sure she wouldn't see what he was hiding. The wind howled louder, as if nature itself was screaming at her to turn back. But turn back to what? The car was already invisible behind them, swallowed by white. They were committed now, trapped by their own forward momentum into whatever came next. "There," Marcus finally said, pointing ahead. Through the swirling snow, a dark shape emerged. A cabin, small and solitary, with no lights in the windows, no smoke from the chimney, no signs of life at all. Sarah's heart sank. The cabin looked abandoned. Worse, it looked like the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody ever found out. Are there any neighbors?" Sarah heard herself ask, knowing the answer. "Nearest cabin is 3 miles east. No one else stupid enough to live up here year-round." Marcus approached the front door, pulled out keys. Just me. Just him. Alone. In the middle of nowhere. Emma was crying now, whether from cold or fear, Sarah couldn't tell. Tyler had gone quiet in that way children do when they're shutting down. They needed warmth. They needed shelter. They needed not to be murdered. Marcus unlocked the door and pushed it open. Darkness yawned from inside. "Come on in. I'll get the generator running. Get some heat going." He stepped inside first, swallowed by shadows. Sarah stood at the threshold, her children pressed against her, the blizzard at her back and the unknown ahead. Every fiber of her being said this was wrong. The isolated location, the hidden object under his coat, the too convenient cabin nearby, the way he seemed to have been waiting for them. But behind her, the storm was erasing their footprints, erasing any path back to the car, erasing any choice. "Mommy," Emma whispered. "I'm scared." Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand and stepped into the darkness. Marcus closed the door behind them, and Sarah heard the distinct sound of a lock clicking into place. They were trapped. The darkness was absolute. Sarah's breath came in short, panicked gasps as she heard Marcus moving somewhere in the cabin, his footsteps creaking across wooden floors she couldn't see. She pulled Emma and Tyler against her so tightly they whimpered in protest, her eyes struggling to adjust, trying to map exits she hadn't seen, weapons she might grab, ways to protect her children from whatever was about to happen. "Just give me a second." Marcus's voice came from somewhere to the left. Generators temperamental in this weather. A beam of light suddenly cut through the darkness. A flashlight, held by Marcus as he moved toward what looked like a back room. The light illuminated his profile, the sharp angles of his face, and Sarah saw his hand move to his coat, reaching for whatever he'd been concealing. Something inside Sarah snapped. "Stop!" She lunged toward the fireplace she could barely make out, her hands closing around cold iron. A poker. She spun around, putting herself between Marcus and her children, brandishing the weapon with shaking hands. "Don't come any closer. I know what you're doing. I know." Marcus froze, the flashlight beam going still. "Ma'am. Don't ma'am me. You brought us out here. This isolated cabin. No one around. That thing hidden under your coat." Her voice cracked. "What are you? What do you want from us?" Emma was sobbing. Tyler had curled into a ball on the floor. And Sarah stood there, a mother bear with a poker, ready to fight to the death if necessary. Marcus very slowly raised his hands, still holding the flashlight. "Sarah, how do you know my name?" She hadn't told him her name. "Your daughter said it. In the car." His voice was steady, calm, like he'd done this before. "I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm going to reach under my coat now, slowly, and show you what I've been carrying. Okay. No sudden moves. No, don't move. I swear I'll." "It's medical supplies," Marcus said quietly. "I'm a retired army medic. I saw your daughter shivering in the car. I saw the blue tint starting around her lips. Early stage hypothermia. That's what I've been carrying." Sarah's hands shook so badly the poker rattled. "You're lying." "I'm not." Marcus slowly, agonizingly slowly, opened his coat with one hand. Into the flashlight beam, he pulled out not a weapon, but a red medical kit with a white cross on it. "See? Just a med kit. Your little girl needs warming. She needs it now." Sarah wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. But trust wasn't that simple. Not after everything she'd been taught to fear. Marcus set the flashlight down on a table, pointing it at the ceiling to illuminate the whole room. Sarah could finally see. Rough-hewn furniture, a wood stove, framed photos on the walls too distant to make out. It looked normal, lived in, not like a murder cabin at all. "I'm going to get the generator now," Marcus said, hands still raised. "You can keep that poker if it makes you feel safer. But please, let me help your daughter." Sarah's arms ached from holding the weapon. Her mind spun in circles. Emma was crying. Tyler was shaking. She lowered the poker an inch. Just an inch. Marcus took that as permission and disappeared into the back room. A moment later, she heard mechanical sounds, and suddenly lights flickered on throughout the cabin. The wood stove in the corner began radiating blessed heat. Marcus emerged empty-handed, moving slowly, showing her his palms. "May I check on Emma?" Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. She watched, every muscle tensed. As Marcus knelt beside Emma, his movements professional and practiced. He checked her pulse, looked at her fingernails, felt her skin temperature. "She's hypothermic, but early stage. We caught it in time." He looked up at Sarah. "You made the right choice, coming here, trusting me." Shame flooded through Sarah so powerfully she almost collapsed. "I thought you were. I know what you thought." Marcus's voice held no judgment, only exhaustion. "I know what I look like to you. Big black man, middle of nowhere. But I'm not what you feared." Sarah's phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket, the first sign of life it had shown in hours. She pulled it out with shaking hands. One bar of service. Dozens of missed calls from her husband. And a news alert that made her blood run cold. Armed fugitive loose in Durango mountains. Extremely dangerous. Do not approach. The alert included a photo. White male, 30s. Last seen wearing a dark jacket. Not Marcus. Sarah looked up to apologize, to explain, to say something. That's when the shadow appeared at the window. A face pressed against the glass. Wild eyes. Definitely not Marcus. And then the pounding started on the door. The pounding was violent, desperate. Fists hammering against wood like they intended to break through. Let me in. I know someone's in there. Open the damn door. Marcus moved instantly, his entire demeanor transforming from gentle medic to something else. Something harder, trained, dangerous in a different way. He positioned himself between the door and Sarah's family, his voice dropping to a command whisper. Get the kids behind the couch. Now, stay down. Stay quiet. Sarah didn't argue. She grabbed Emma and Tyler, pulling them behind the heavy furniture, pressing them flat against the floor. Her heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. The phone in her hand showed that single, precious bar of service. The pounding continued, accompanied now by a voice that sent ice through Sarah's veins. I saw your lights come on. I've been out here for hours. You gonna let me freeze to death? Marcus called through the door, his voice steady. Can't help you, friend. Storm's too dangerous. Best wait it out where you are. Bull, open this door or I'll break it down. Sarah watched Marcus's face in the lamplight. No fear, no panic, just calculated assessment. He was scanning the room, the windows, the door, measuring angles and vulnerabilities like a chess player thinking 3 moves ahead. Listen, Marcus said, louder now. I'm calling the police. They've got a rescue team working the area. I'll tell them where you are. No police. The voice cracked with panic and rage. No cops. Just let me in for 5 minutes. Just to warm up. Marcus met Sarah's eyes across the room. In that look, an entire conversation happened. This was him, the fugitive, the dangerous one. And Marcus had known it the moment that voice started shouting. Can't do that, Marcus said to the door. But I'll leave some supplies on the porch. Blanket, heat packs. You take those and move on. That's the deal. I'm not negotiating. The pounding intensified. The door shuddered in its frame. Tyler whimpered, and Sarah clamped her hand over his mouth, gentle but firm. Emma had gone absolutely still, her eyes huge and terrified. Sarah looked at her phone. Still 1 bar. Her fingers trembled as she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man trying to break into a cabin, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. He's the fugitive, the one in the news. She looked at Marcus helplessly. I don't know where we are. Marcus held out his hand, and Sarah tossed him the phone. He caught it one-handed while never taking his eyes off the door. This is Marcus Reed. I'm at 4750 Cedar Ridge Trail, he said into the phone, his voice calm despite the violence at his door. Got 3 civilians inside. 1 adult, 2 minors. Fugitive from your alert is attempting to force entry. Yes, ma'am, we're secure for now, but situation is volatile. The pounding stopped. The sudden silence was somehow worse. He's moving, Marcus whispered, watching the windows, looking for another way in. Sarah's arms wrapped tighter around her children. This was it. This was how they died, not in the cold but in violence. She'd trusted Marcus only to bring her children to a different kind of danger. But then Marcus did something unexpected. He walked to his closet, opened it, and pulled out a hunting rifle. Sarah's breath caught. There it was, the weapon, the danger she'd sensed all along. But Marcus didn't point it at them. He positioned himself by the window, the rifle held with the practiced ease of someone who'd carried one before, and waited. The shadow appeared at the far window, testing it. Locked. Moved to another. Also locked. The fugitive was circling like a predator, looking for weakness. Dispatch says units are 12 minutes out, Marcus said quietly, phone still to his ear. Storm's slowing them down. We just need to hold position. 12 minutes. A lifetime. The shadow disappeared from the windows. For a moment, Sarah dared to hope he'd given up, moved on. decided to take his chances with the storm. Then came the sound of breaking glass from the back room. He was coming in. Marcus moved toward the sound, rifle raised. "Stay down," he commanded Sarah. "Whatever happens, you protect those kids. You understand me? Whatever happens." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face, pulling Emma and Tyler so close she could feel their hearts beating against her own. Footsteps in the back room. Heavy. Stumbling. Then a figure appeared in the doorway, exactly like the photo, wild-eyed and desperate, something dark in his hand. "Drop it," Marcus said, rifle aimed steady. "Drop it now." The fugitive looked at the rifle, at Marcus, at Sarah, and the kids behind the couch. His face twisted with calculation, desperation, the animal math of a cornered predator. "You don't have the—" Red and blue lights suddenly exploded through every window, turning the cabin into a disco of law enforcement. The cavalry had arrived early, or maybe it had been longer than any of them realized. "Police! Come out with your hands up!" The fugitive's face collapsed. In that moment, he looked less dangerous than exhausted, less monster than man who'd made terrible choices and run out of road. He dropped the object in his hand. A rock, Sarah saw, not a gun, and slowly raised his arms. What happened next was a blur of officers, commands, handcuffs, and Miranda rights. The fugitive was led out into the snow, toward a fleet of vehicles that somehow made it up the mountain. More police came in, taking statements, checking on the children, radiating protective competence. Through it all, Marcus stood to the side, rifle already put away, looking like exactly what he was, a citizen who'd done what needed doing and wanted no glory for it. An officer approached Sarah. "Ma'am, we got a call from Marcus about 2 hours ago. Said he'd spotted a stranded vehicle and was bringing civilians to safety. Asked us to come secure the area. Mentioned he'd seen suspicious activity in the woods. That's why we were already on our way. 2 hours ago, before they'd even reached the cabin. Marcus had already been protecting them, already calling for help, already doing everything right. And she'd pointed a poker at him like he was the danger." Dawn broke clear and cold, the storm finally exhausted. Sarah stood on Marcus's porch, watching the last police vehicle navigate back down the mountain. The world looked reborn. Everything covered in pristine white, trees bowed under the weight of snow, the sky that particular sharp blue that only comes after winter storms. Behind her, through the cabin window, she could see Emma and Tyler sleeping on Marcus's couch, wrapped in blankets, their breathing steady and safe. They'd been checked by paramedics and cleared, cold and scared, but fine. They'd survived this with nothing worse than a story to tell. The door opened and Marcus stepped out, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. He handed one to Sarah without a word, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb higher. "You saved our lives," Sarah finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I did what anyone should do." Marcus took a sip of his coffee. "Though not everyone does." Sarah turned to face him fully. "Why? Why do you live up here alone? Why help strangers?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief. "I had a family once. Wife, daughter. She'd be about your Emma's age now." He paused. "We got caught in a storm like you. Car broke down on a mountain road, like yours. And we waited for someone to stop. Someone to help." Sarah's heart clenched. People drove by. Lots of them. We could see their headlights through the snow. But nobody stopped. Marcus's jaw tightened. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they didn't see us. Maybe they did see us and... He trailed off, but Sarah understood what he didn't say. "They found us 3 days later. I was the only one who made it. Marcus, I moved up here after," he continued, as if he needed to finish the story now that he'd started. "Bought this cabin. Made it a point to know this road, to watch for stranded travelers. Because if I could save one family, just one, maybe..." He stopped, shook his head. "Maybe it wouldn't bring them back. But it would mean something. It would mean their deaths weren't for nothing." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "I almost didn't trust you. I know what you thought." Marcus looked at her, his eyes kind despite the pain in them. Big black man, isolated place, white woman and her kids. I've seen enough of the world to know how that equation works in most people's minds. That's not fair, Sarah said, then caught herself. No, that's exactly what happened. I'm so sorry. You protected your kids. That's your job. Marcus set down his coffee mug. But maybe, going forward, you'll remember that danger doesn't always look like what you expect. And help doesn't always come from where you think. The sound of tires on snow made them both turn. A truck was making its way up the cleared road. Sarah's husband, finally able to reach them. She'd called him an hour ago, explained everything, and he'd immediately started driving from the hotel where he'd been stranded by the storm. Sarah watched the truck approach, then looked back at Marcus. How do I explain this to my kids? How do I tell them about everything? Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his face. You tell them the truth, that they met someone who chose to be good even when the world gave him every reason not to be. That kindness exists in unexpected places. That people are more than their worst assumptions. The truck pulled up. Sarah's husband jumped out, rushing toward them. He wrapped his arms around Sarah, kissing her head, checking her over. Then he turned to Marcus and extended his hand. Two men, different colors, different stories, connected by the simple act of one person helping another. They shook hands, and in that gesture, Sarah saw something profound. Humanity distilled to its essence. Tyler appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Mommy? Is it morning? Yes, baby. Come here. Tyler stumbled over, still half asleep, and looked up at Marcus with the uncomplicated directness of children. Are you the nice man who saved us? Marcus knelt down to Tyler's level. I'm the man who happened to be in the right place. You're the brave boy who walked through a blizzard. People in the car were scared of you, Tyler said with brutal 5-year-old honesty. But you're not scary. You're nice. The statement hung in the crystal air like a judgment and a prayer. Sarah's husband looked confused, and Sarah knew she'd have a long conversation to unpack all of this later. But in that moment, she was content to watch Marcus smile at her son, to see the recognition in his eyes that maybe, just maybe, he'd saved more than lives last night. Maybe he'd saved something in himself too. You take care of your mom and sister, okay? Marcus said to Tyler. I will. As they prepared to leave, the car had been towed to Marcus's property and was being worked on. Sarah turned back one last time. Marcus was already scanning the horizon, binoculars in hand, watching the road below, a guardian angel in human form, waiting for the next person who needed help. Proving that heroism isn't about cape or color, but about choice. About choosing to be good when the world makes it hard. About choosing to help when others might pass by. The moral: fear blinds us to grace. The danger we imagine is often less real than the help we refuse to see. Judge people by their actions, not your assumptions. Kindness exists in unexpected places, and sometimes the people we're taught to fear are the very ones sent to save us. If the story made you think, if it challenged your assumptions, if it reminded you that humanity transcends our prejudices, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever misjudged someone? Have you ever been misjudged? Let's start a conversation about seeing beyond our fears and recognizing the heroes among us, regardless of what they look like. Asterisk asterisk. Because the next time you see someone offering help, remember Marcus. Remember that hands extended in kindness deserve to be met with trust, not suspicion. And maybe, just maybe, we can all choose to be the person who stops instead of the person who drives by. Asterisk asterisk. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and remember that the best of humanity shows up in the worst of storms.